On the podcast on Monday, we started out by talking about the shootings in El Paso and Dayton. Now, I will admit that due to the freshness of the story at the time and some familial issues that I was dealing with over the weekend, I was woefully unprepared for this segment. But now that nearly a week has passed and we've had wall-to-wall coverage of the events, I know a bit about the details and I think we need to talk about some of the things that went on. On Saturday morning at approximately 10:30 a.m. Central Time, Patrick Crusius entered an El Paso Walmart with a .223 chambered rifle and opened fire almost indiscriminately. Now, this appears to be a highly racially motivated attack and specifically targeted, but we will talk about that in a moment when we talk about motives. Crusius was apprehended and is currently awaiting trial. But that wasn't the only shooting that happened in a 24-hour period. At approximately 1 a.m. Sunday morning Eastern Time, disaster struck once again. Connor Betts, armed with a similar rifle, opened fire at a local bar, killing 10 and injuring 27. While these shootings seem to use a similar weapon and a methodology, these two events seem to not be related. Authorities say that they have no idea what the motive of Mr. Betts was, but reading some of the limited facts that we have at hand on the case, I'm pretty sure that I do know what happened. But since we have so much information still on the table about El Paso, let's start out with that event. Now, Crusius had a goal in mind. If we assume that his manifesto was his anyway, he saw his view of society decaying and his goal was to try and put his opponents in fear in a blaze of glory. I am not going to read the manifesto in whole on this channel, but I have linked it in the description and I do encourage everybody to go and read it because it does help to understand what actually happened and possibly give us some closure to the event. At the time I'm recording this video, there is still an active copy of the manifesto online, but I would hurry up to read it because it does seem like a lot of the sites out there are trying to suppress it or scrub it from the internet entirely. When I read this document for the first time, I saw the same thing that everybody else saw when they read the document for the first time. It's the same thing that we're still talking about to this day. Extreme alt-right rhetoric. Crusius tells us that there is an invasion coming from Mexico, Central, and South America of Latin American people into his native Texas. He cites the fact that these Latin American people have a high birth rate, quickly replacing the baby boomers that are dying off, and he cites an election strategy to make the United States a one-party state by pandering to these Latin Americans as they come into the country, whether legally or illegally. But Crusius's ire was equally against the Republicans. The shooter claims that his beliefs do far predate Trump and attacks Republicans, which are pro-corporation, as being pro-immigration as well. Immigration, both legal and illegal, make for very cheap labor. As one would expect due to the racial nature of the things that Crusius said, the mainstream media was very quick to try and pin the shooting and the shooter to President Trump and the Republican Party, but actually reading the manifesto shows a much deeper web inside the alleged killer's mind, and his beliefs extend far beyond the left and the right. So there's a lot more that we need to pay attention to as we go through the trial of this event and see what the outcome is and just see what Crusius says to the judge. With a manifesto in front of us and a suspect in custody that can be questioned by the police, we have a wealth of information available to us about the El Paso shooting, and we will most likely get some closure from it. But conversely, we know far less about Connor Betts and the shooting that he perpetrated in Dayton, Ohio. Now, due to his Twitter profile, the fact that he had his pronouns in, and the fact that he often retweeted Elizabeth Warren, Jared Holt, and many other left-wing figures, people on the right on Twitter have tried to pin Connor Betts to the left. In fact, he is very much a leftist, but they also try to pin the shooting to left-wing violence, and I don't necessarily believe that's true. Left-wing journalist Tim Pool has gone as far as to say that Connor was an accelerationist, that he was just perpetrating an event like this to try and push the gun control narrative further and try to reach political ends faster, even if it came at the cost of his life. But I don't think it even has anything to do with that the more that I look at what happened and the little bit of information that we have available to us. When I look at the Dayton shooting and all of the facts that we have sitting in front of us, I see a mentally disturbed individual that had a history of being bullied, an individual that kept kill and rape lists, who went to a bar with his sister and her boyfriend. Now, I don't know what the relationship was between Connor and the sister or the boyfriend, but I'm guessing that, fueled by alcohol, he was getting pushed around by some of the bigger guys in the bar, and he got angry about it. He went home. He armed up because he had been collecting guns, as a lot of people who have been bullied do, and he came back and started shooting indiscriminately. And I do suspect that some of the bullying came from the boyfriend as well, because he and the sister were both targets and were both killed in the shooting. But unfortunately, due to the fact that Connor Betts was killed by a police officer and that his political leanings leaned left, we are guaranteed that this story is going to go quiet and we may never get closure from this event. While the motives of the shooters have dominated the conversation all week, another idea has been creeping not so secretly into the dialogue as we talk about this. In the wake of the shootings, Congress has revisited red flag laws that they were talking about after the Parkland shooting, with both sides suddenly becoming in support of putting these laws in place both at state and federal levels. Those on the Twitter right are coming together and agreeing that these red flag laws are highly unconstitutional, especially when they come along the federal level. The biggest argument that we have been seeing against these red flag laws is a lack of due process that it would take to enforce them on any level of the government. The fear and the idea behind the argument is the fact that the wrong person can file a baseless claim against a person that he wants to see disarmed, or another person in that man's household, and the rights to keep and bear arms would be removed without any sort of trial. But due process took another role in the discussion during this news cycle. As I was learning more about the Dayton and the Elpaso shooters, this tweet from Geraldo got my attention instantly. Don't understand how/why the hashtag white supremacist killer of so many in hashtag El Paso terrorist attack survives to be arrested. Wish brave cops killed the piece of shit. Sure, he's mentally ill, so was Hitler. Next time, kill the son of a bitch first, ask questions later. I do understand the need to use lethal force in law enforcement from time to time, but it should only be used in a last resort and in a situation where it is the only way to prevent more loss of life and limb. Letting the police be judge, jury, and executioner denies the suspect his constitutional right to a trial by a jury of his peers. I do agree in this situation that the state should administer capital punishment to Crucius, but it should be done the proper way. I said just as much when I expressed my frustration with the fact that the left has accused the right of defending Crucius and wanting him to get away with the murders because, according to the left, we on the right think that these are righteous kills. I am here to deliver the conservative opinion that the lamestream media will never allow to see the light of day. Give these sick fucks who would shoot the innocent the chair, and let me keep my weapons so I may stand a chance to shoot back should the worst happen. What did you think about the shootings in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio? And what do you think the logical next step should be? I always welcome a thoughtful and positive discussion in the comment section below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at edsblogtwitter with a 1 in place of the I. Thanks as always for listening to this show and supporting this channel. And remember, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care.